Hey guys, I'm going to go over in exact detail how this spreadsheet is used and how it helps my team know exactly what max offer they can make on a property. So first and foremost, you will see down here that there's multiple tabs. We have the MAO calculator, the rehab estimator, the scenarios, the rental analysis, and there's a very simple cap rate calculator that I will not get into on any of my videos. There's better cap rate calculators out there. This is something we have on there. But without further ado, we're going to start on the MAO calculator, and I'll have other videos for the other tabs on here. So first and foremost, you will see it says only put data in the blue cells. By adjusting a white cell, you'll mess up formulas, you'll move stuff around, and then you'll be upset it's not working, and you'll need to go re-download the spreadsheet or fix whatever you broke. So only to know what your MAO is, you only have to fill in these 4 blue cells. Now there's some other calculators in here, and I'll show you in a second what those are. But for the most part, you'll be using this section here. So living square feet is what you'd start with. You find that on the county records. Sometimes Zillow might have it. You find it on the MLS, whatever you were using to find access to the details about the property. So for this sake, we'll say it's a very standard 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot home. Then you have your ARV, price per square foot. That is your after repair value, price per square foot of the house. For simplicity, we'll say that this one is $195 a square foot, which I think is like $292,500. There it is. Then you'll come down here and you'll see that we have this quick rehab cost. These are gut check numbers. You should never use these numbers in full to do a written offer to one of your sellers. You should be getting into your rehab estimator to dial in those numbers a lot better to know exactly what the rehab is looking like. So over here, I will get into that later, but for this sake, let's just say that this house has a $45,000 remodel. We'll put that $45,000 remodel there, and we'll say that you want your wholesale fee to be $30,000. That is typically where we start our wholesale fee at. We usually end up making about a $20,000 fee on average on our deals. So I will put a $30,000 fee on there, and you'll see that that just spit out all the formulas for us. Now you're probably wondering, what's a 65, 70, 75, and 80% rule? You need to know your rules based on the areas that you are marketing to and getting deals under contract. For example, here in DFW, if it's in a nicer area like a 3-2 brick house in Frisco or Plano or Richardson or Rockwall or Little Elm or Denton, and it's like a newer, like 1990 plus, it's going to sell at an 80% rule all day long for us. However, if it's a 3-2 brick house, also new, but it's like way out in Bonham, Texas, that's going to sell at a 75%. And if that same house is not in Bonham, but it's like out in, gosh, I don't know what even, out in Paris, Texas, it's probably going to sell at a 70%. And then 65% is usually what we use on something that's like a really nasty, full gut of a house, probably out in like Bonham or Denison, Gainesville. It needs a bunch of work. It's in an outskirt tertiary market and it needs a bunch of work, right? That's where you probably get down to these lower rules. For the most part, we're using the 75% rule. Now you're probably wondering, what are these 65, 70, 75, and 80% rule? So for easy numbers, obviously 100% is the total amount of, if you have 100%, about, and I say about, 10% of that is what goes to your buying, holding, and selling cost. And then that leaves you, if you're doing a 75% rule, 15% there. So those two things add up to 25, leaves you the 75% rule. So same thing, if someone's using a 70% rule, maybe they have like a 12 and they use about 12% for their holding costs because they don't get as good a deal on their lender or their agent. And then this one here, in order to get that 70% rule, let's say that they're at more of like a 18 there. So those two things added up are that 30, which gives you 100 minus 30 is your 70% rule. So that person's going to make about an 18% profit. So that's your holding costs, that's your profit, but these are just quick numbers you can use to calculate these out. Typically when I am buying, I like to buy more around a 70% rule because I want to make a little bit better profit on the deal. But depending on where the deal is, buyers are willing to make only a 10%. If their holding cost is 10%, they're willing to make just 10% profit on the deal at the 80% rule. If it's in a great area, easy flip, they're fine with that. If it's a harder flip, they're going to want to make like a 20% profit or 25% profit, and then they have their 10% holding cost. So that's what those rules mean. And you just need to know your areas and learn your areas of what the best rule of thumb is for what something trades at. Typically, it's going to be between here, though. So for this one here, you can see we put in 1,500 square feet, $195 a square foot. That is your after repair value. And we put in 45,000 repairs and a wholesale fee of 30,000. You work that out here. And let's say that we're looking at something that's in an area for 75%. We know that our max offer to the seller is going to be $144,375, and that we could likely sell this deal for $174,375. So if I were to market this deal, I'd probably start it at like 179, and we'd land at that number at 174 if I got under contract with that 144 number. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I got under contract at 160, but I'd still be able to sell it for 175. I'd make a $15,000 fee. So that's how those rules work. This is what you should buy at. This is what you should be able to sell it at. These are the percent rules you're using. There's your repair cost, your wholesale fee, your ARV, all plugs in automatically by you just hitting those 4 cells. Now you're probably looking over and going, what is this as is value wholesale calculator? Sometimes, whoops, I just hit a cell. There you go. Sometimes when you do a property and instead of putting $45,000 in it to get a ARV of $292,500, you might be able to just list it as is because it's a 2010 3-2 brick house. Yeah, it's like a little dated, but like it's totally fine. Like it's like people will move into that in a heartbeat, and you can sell it and do no work and make just as much profit. That's what this calculator is for. So for this sake, let's say that this same house sells for $175 a foot as is, about a $30,000 difference there. So if this home as is, without doing the $30K in repairs to it, actually I'm going to drop that down just a little bit. We'll use that number there. We'll sell at $246. Well, we know that this house in the same area at a 75% rule, as is, it's worth $246. That our max offer, let me put in the $30,000 fee there, is $154. See that there? 144 to 154. We would have left 10 grand on the table had we not looked at what it would go for as is. Now, I get into this detail a lot more also down here in the scenarios calculator later, but this is just a quick one. You can look at it as well. So you're also going to see these same rules over here. I've been going backwards for whatever reason. But I have this other one in here. It's called the ARV 90% rule. The team doesn't use that much, but just so you know what that is that if I were looking at this property and I were to be like, hey, like for me to just buy this property, take it and list it and do zero work, I'm going to want to make 25 grand. Our number just went up again, right? So now we went from 144 being our max number to 154 to 166. Being able to sell this for someone would buy this for 196,000 because they're going to have to do no work to it and just list it and then make 25 grand. I don't know about you, but I would fork out $196,000 tomorrow if you told me that in less than 60 days I had, 25 grand coming back. Absolutely. It's easy money. That's why I use this ARV 90% rule, is for things that need zero work and are listable as is. You might be leaving money on the table if you're not looking at that rule there. A lot of people overlook this and don't, pick up a property or evaluate it as is. You got to look at the as is value and the after repair value to know which way is the better exit strategy of the property. Again, we go to this on the scenarios a lot more, but that's why this is important to use. Last thing over here, you're going to see this 1.25% rule. What is a 1.25% rental rule? Typically, in order for something to cash flow or even really just break even as a rental, it needs to rent out for 1.25% of the ARV. So, or the all-in cost, really. So if something costs, if all in you're $100,000 for easy numbers, that property should rent out for $1,250. So 1.25% of the $100,000. So over here, we'll use the same type of property up here. We'll see that the ARV rental amount is $2,500 a month. Again, this is ARV rental amount. Like, what is it going to rent for after you put some repairs into it? And we'll say that in order for it to get to that amount, and so that we could rent it out for $2,500 a month, we need to do, I don't know, $15,000 in work. We have that there. And then we still want to make our $30,000 assignment fee. We know that our max offer is $155,000. Great. We know that this property works in this scenario, and this scenario. To me, I'm like looking at these numbers, like we've got a 155 there, a 155 there, a 144 here, a 166 here. I'd probably try to lock this property up around that 154, 155 number and think I might be able to get it up this high. So knowing all your scenarios of how you can exit a property is very important. Now, you also see this comparable properties here. Something my team does after every time they put one of these together on a property is they rename it and they save it to our Google Drive. They put the comparable properties in here of, 123 Main Street, Frisco, and they'll put a note, sold at 190 a square foot. They'll just make some quick notes in here so that we know what we already looked at and what we go back and reference if we were to try to sell this property. That way you're not doing the same exact thing 10 times. Next down here, I put this on here just for my team. I tell them like, hey, if you feel confident on your comps, good comps or okay comps, you don't need to come get a verify from management to make an offer. Just roll with it. If you feel like comps were tough or there's no comps at all, get some verification from your manager and then we'll work through it, right? So they just select that. That's for them. You can use it for yourself too, just so that you're like, oh, I felt really good about these comps. I'm going to mark it as good comps, or the comps were kind of tough. That way I know I might need to revisit it later. So that is our calculator. This is the exact thing that they use to know what we should offer on a property based on the area. I have it hidden down here right now. But for you guys, if you are, how do you unhide these? Unhide rows. My team has this little cheat sheet that I made for them based on the county at where they should be offering. It's just a little cheat sheet. Like if it's a property that's out in Fannin County and it's a full gut, we need to be at a 65% rule. And even if it's an easy cosmetic, we're at 75%. You could also see like Collin or Denton County, easy cosmetic 80%, and a full gut will still be able to sell at 75%. So I have that down there. You won't see that on your spreadsheet, but you can make yourself a table like this to kind of remember where people are buying and where you need to be at for these different areas. So again, that is our rehab calculator. I hope this was helpful to you. My team has used the same calculator for over 2 years now. I've been using something very similar. I just elaborated on this for over 4 years. So this here works. It's our system of truth. We take it, put your comps in. We have a rehab estimator. We'll go over later, scenarios and a rental analysis. But this is a calculator that we use, and you should use it too. So make sure you're making numbers and you can stand behind them when you make those offers.